Hey, I'm J. Robert Rains, and you're watching Is It Real and How to Deal. Now, we're doing something a little bit different this week because we had a bunch of people poking and prodding and yelling that, hey, you need to cover this news story that came out. So, we're going to try a little bit different formula to our regular shows. We'll be back to our normal formula next week. But until then, enjoy the new episode. Our stories for this week: cultural appropriation in metaphysics. You can't have it both ways. How to tell when you're about to make a huge mistake in investigation. Inquiring minds want to know. And a girl plays with fire, and everyone's surprised when she gets burned. I'm J. Robert Rains, and that f***ery and more on Is It Real and How to Deal. Cultural appropriation, the act of taking an aspect of another's culture and either claiming it as your own invention or not giving credit to the original owner, or as a lot of witch talk likes to call it, Thursday. In the metaphysical community, there's hundreds of thousands of faiths, practices, and systems you can choose from, but the general ones most people go to or start with simply due to the most social media exposure are the basics: crystals, tarot, basic spells, Wicca, etc. But the problem with this is its lack of structure. Metaphysics and spirituality, they're a haven for people who feel like they don't believe or belong in mainstream belief systems and societies, giving it a choose-your-own-adventure quality to the spiritual digging. But due to it being so open-ended, little real-time fact-checking, and a lot of garbage information online, it's easy to see where some people would dig a little deeper into things that shouldn't be messed with.
Yesterday I tried to make a spell for self-love, happiness, and awakeness, but it backfired so badly that out of the blue my body started to ache the entire day. I had a depressive episode out of the blue for the entire day after having no depressive episode for some time now, and I was just random spells of tiredness.
Bad for me, bad for me, bad for me, but I give in so easily. And no thank you is how it should go. I should say so.
Oh wow! It's almost like not knowing what you're doing at more than a superficial level might hurt you. It's like forgetting where you left a candle and then saying, "No, I'll find it later." But the bigger issue is that while most of the generalized #BabyWitch introductory information is built around Wicca and the supposed Celtic practices, again, very little fact-checking there, new and old practitioners alike are reaching for aspects of other faiths and practices that don't really fall under their purview.
Bad for me, bad for me, bad for me, but I give in.
Yep, a bunch of white people reaching out to West African deities for no reason. That's the problem with cultural appropriation. It's cherry-picking what you want while ignoring the genesis, circumstance, and history that goes with the specific practice or deity. I know, I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, where the Yamasee people lived. There's burial grounds all over the city. I'm going to reach out to some Yamasee spirits and gods to work with since this land has strong ties to it. Sure, go ahead, if you feel like ignoring the fact that the Yamasee were massacred when the Cape Fear region was settled, or when burial pits were exhumed for building foundations for buildings. There are stories that there used to be a minefield here, but I can't see the mines, and it was a long time ago, so it must be safe. I'm just gonna go walking. Okay, let's assume that they're right, and we can and should reach out to any deity that we want to. The lack of research and working knowledge shouldn't hurt anyone except for me, right? That's where it gets sticky. Because it can. Paranormal, and yes, spiritual investigation relies on replicable data. One of our favorite paranormal investigation groups, Gateway Paranormal, based out of Tennessee, makes a habit of going back to locations they've investigated before to see what has changed since they've been there, and most importantly, what continues to happen. They're building a case for proof with more information. Bad information that's readily accessible spreads bad information. With the accessibility of young people on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, it's scarily easy for limited, out-of-context, edited, or downright false information to reach impressionable ears. And that's how people end up getting haunted, or hurt, or worse. Which leads us into something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is something that has plagued all of us at some point. The idea is basically the newer you are at something, the less knowledge-based experience you have. Yeah, that's obvious. But while it's obvious, it creates something called a cognitive bias, which means that at some point you overestimate your ability. Personally, I've been playing guitar for almost 20 years, but because I put the time in, I know just how much I still have to learn, which is why all these prodigies make me so angry. Stop being so incredible, you beautiful bastard. But with the instant validation of social media, anyone can feel like they've really got a knack for the kind of work, which leads to overconfidence, Dunning-Kruger effect, and the dangerous waters of playing with fire. With generality, there's no room to understand that you need to learn to specialize. That's the important thing. You see that with spiritual advisors on paranormal investigation teams all the time. People who have a somewhat decent working knowledge of their craft, but one not specialized in dealing with harmful spirits, or a heavy-duty cleansing after exposure to them. I mean, I broke my leg, but the plumber's here. Should we let him set it? Well, since I can't afford health insurance, that sounds like a green light to me. Go ahead, buddy. Stick a PVC pipe on it. In any decent scientific investigation, data is gathered and bad data is tossed in a clinical setting. For spiritual or metaphysical practitioners, it shouldn't be any different. Never substitute metaphysics for basic human psychology or discount scientific evidence because it doesn't fit within your practice. Which leads us into the main story of this week. A Virginia-based girl summons a voodoo spirit and then drops dead, and no one's surprised. God, are you fucking kidding? Ridiculous. No. No, now we're here to work. Yeah, I don't have words either. Any sane person would slam their heads against a wall and say, what the heck were you thinking? But that's the problem in a nutshell, isn't it? Caitlin Reston was a member of Facebook groups and other groups online that promoted spell use and exploration. But again, the Dunning-Kruger effect comes into play. She even released status updates claiming to let people live and practice their own religion, and that she was Wiccan and always will be. Fine. But Papa Legba has nothing to do with Wicca, or witchcraft, or paganism. Under looser terms, Haitian Vodou, where Legba comes from, is monotheistic, one god. Legba is what's called a Loa, or Loa, what some people would refer to as a higher spirit, or a saint in Catholicism. Historically, since Hispaniola and Haiti had a heavy Catholic influence, it's not hard to see where that came from. TikTok user CDN the Players puts it best.
Disclaimer, I don't know what took this girl out. But for the sake of this video, let's just say it was voodoo. It's a closed practice for a reason. If you were not born or invited into voodoo, hoodoo, vodou, santeria, don't touch it. It's not witchcraft, nor is it pagan. The Loa are not gods. They're spirits who serve the one God. And they're not your friends either. I'm of West African descent. I have family in Virginia and in Louisiana. And yes, we're Creole. I was born into it. It's in my bloodline. I met this one white boy last year who told me he tried to summon Agwe, the Loa of the sea, with some fucking internet ritual. A ritual he said he was too lazy to finish. His family got hit with bad nightmares and the paranormal. And I asked him, why did he need such a powerful Loa? I don't remember, TBH. I was kinda just fucking around with something I shouldn't have played with like a toy. This is Papa Legba, the Loa of Crossroads. This is not Papa Legba, this is the Baron. He's basically our Grim Reaper. Appropriation can be fatal. Black culture is not a toy. And if you can't respect that, then I'm not obliged to care about what happens to you.
Damn. But he's not wrong. Caitlin Reston's death is incredibly unfortunate, and my thoughts do go out to her family and friends. But again, cultural appropriation has little care about where it pulls from, and without the context involved, it is dangerous. I have plenty of friends who are fully fledged Ungans and Mambos in Haitian Vodou, priests, some of whom are white, but the difference is they went to Haiti. They asked to be initiated. They lived amongst the poor and the destitute in Haiti to understand the necessity of voodoo in Haitian culture. And they learned for years. Even after they were announced as Mambos and Ungans, they still made trips as often as they could to Haiti, despite the goings of their daily life in the States. The difference is respect. With hoodoo, my practice, it's similar. Some gatekeeping does happen, and it does happen for a reason. For lack of a better word, I had an in to learning and practicing voodoo. The door was open, but there was a line I have to walk respectfully every time I do work for a client, especially if they're a person of color. Conjure was born out of oppression and has stuck with the poor and working classes for a reason. However, it's mostly seen as a practice of black culture, because in the United States, who else has been more systemically oppressed than black and native peoples? I try to acknowledge my white privilege. Understand that my clients have some issues they're going through I'll never know or understand, again that Dunning-Kruger effect, and take them at their word that it needs to be fixed. Not me, but we. Spirituality is sticky. You're dealing with people's beliefs, and we all know how prickly people can get about their beliefs. Yeah, looking at you! Dark Ages, Crusades, 30 Years' War, Haitian Revolution, French Wars, Bosnian Wars, Rwandan Wars, Palestinian, Israeli conflict, Mujahideen, Sudan, Syrian Wars, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, United States, so on. But with the easy dissemination of information to starved eyes and ears, especially during this crisis, it's more easily absorbed than ever before. When things are bad in society, people have little else to turn to than spirituality. But we can't forget that spirituality, especially the kind where your goal is to affect the world around you, is dangerous in nature. Love and light are great, but they only get you so far. And light doesn't exist without casting a shadow. Right and left hands. Caitlin Reston's death is a tragic and unfortunate circumstance, but there is a lesson to be learned there, and it's one that we should all take to heart. Looking before you leap never hurt anyone. Respect is earned by hard work, experience, and humbleness in your craft, and that the easy path is a sure way to get burned. Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in this week. I know we did something a little bit different, but we needed to touch on this, don't you think? But in the meantime, we have other videos coming out. Plenty of other videos from not only Rebekah the Ghost Guide and Is It Real and How to Deal, back to our normal formula next week. But in the meantime, what else are you doing? You're sitting at home watching Netflix, right? So pop onto YouTube, hit the subscribe button, take a big bite out of it because it's delicious. But then I want you to take this bell, this big beautiful bell, hit this bell so you get notified about when we have new videos coming out. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Please stay healthy, stay safe, wear a mask, social distance, but most importantly, stay spooky. We'll see you next week.